Imagine this. You are studying at a prestigious university abroad. Life seems almost set on a certain path, and then one phone call changes everything. News comes from home that your father is no more. Back in India, there is a company, there are responsibilities, there is family, and in front of you stands a turning point where one wrong decision could sink not just a business, but an entire legacy. That is where the fear begins. Because this was not some scripted tragedy from a film. This was the true story of the young man the world knows today as Azim Premji. The same Azim Premji whose name today is spoken with discipline, vision, simplicity, and philanthropy. But the question is, how did a company that made cooking oil become a global IT giant within a few decades? And an even bigger question. Was this transformation merely business strategy, or the story of a mind that was thinking several steps ahead of its time? To understand Azim Premji's story, we have to go back to a time when India was not the startup-driven, digital economy country it is today. Back then, the business world was limited, there were licenses, imports were restricted, the technology ecosystem was very small, and industrial growth usually meant manufacturing, textiles, steel, or chemicals. In that era, the expectation from the heir of a traditional business family was simple: that he would protect the family business, grow it a little, and keep moving along the same old path. But Premji did not just take charge of a business, he changed the very definition of the business itself. Azim Premji was born on the 24th of July 1945 in Bombay. His father, 𝐼𝐻 Premji, was a successful businessman who founded Western Indian Vegetable Products Limited in 1945. The company made Vanaspati and related consumer products. At the time of partition, the family stayed in India, even though they had also received an invitation to move to Pakistan. That detail may sound small, but this is where you begin to understand the character of that family. Understanding risk, making big decisions, and standing firm on one's own ground. It is often said that the first inheritance in business is not money, but mindset. The Premji family had exactly that mindset. Azim Premji did not grow up in an environment of displaying wealth, but in one of work, discipline, and responsibility. Perhaps that is why, even when he later came to possess billions of dollars in wealth, his public image remained not one of extravagance, but of restraint. That is what makes him different from many other big industrialists. He does not look like one of those people who turn wealth into a spotlight. He seems to see wealth as a tool. Young Azim Premji had gone to Stanford University for his studies. He was pursuing engineering, and his future could well have moved toward America or a path of global business exposure. But in 1966, his father's sudden death changed everything. He was only 21 years old. Very little time was left for him to complete his degree at Stanford, yet he had to leave everything and return to India. He completed his degree later, but at that moment life pushed him straight from the classroom into the boardroom. Now just imagine that mental pressure. At 21, most people are still searching for their identity. But Premji had to take charge of a running business at that age, and not just any business. It was a company that at the time was not a technology icon, but a relatively modest company making edible oil and related products. Many people must have thought that this young man would run the business for a few years, play it safe, and simply keep the company afloat. But this is where the story turns. Because Premji did not look at the company as an inheritance, but as a possibility. In the early years, he did not launch any flashy revolution in a hurry. First, he understood the business. This step is very important. Today, many people talk about transformation, but expansion without understanding the roots often turns into collapse. Premji first stabilized the core business, looked at the systems, understood the people, examined the operations. Then he gradually began diversifying. The company stepped into consumer products, soaps, light bulbs, and hydraulic cylinders. This shows that Premji's thinking was not linear. He was not a businessman who remained stuck to one product line. This is the phase where he showed a crucial trait: adaptability. In business history, many companies die because they become emotionally attached to their original success model. They start believing that what made money once will always make money. Premji did not make that mistake. He understood that the future belonged to sectors where knowledge, technology, and scale came together. And in India, the period from the 1970s to the 1980s, despite all its constraints, was also creating opportunities for people who could see ahead. Wipro's real turning point came when the technology space in India slowly started opening up. Premji sensed the possibilities in electronics and computing in time. Later, Wipro entered the high technology sector and moved toward manufacturing mini computers. At that time, this was no ordinary decision. It was as big a cultural shift as turning a textile mill into an aerospace company overnight. The very idea of an edible oil company becoming a technology company would have seemed impractical to many back then. But that was Premji's strength. He chased trends less and read them early more. Here, one more deep thing must be understood. Vision does not simply mean choosing a new sector. Real vision means choosing the right sector at the right time and then gathering the talent, capital, patience, and execution needed for it. Premji turned Wipro toward technology, but not overnight. He brought professionalism into the company, emphasized processes, strengthened governance, and gradually built a culture where merit and performance mattered more. That is why Wipro did not remain the company of just one charismatic founder. It kept becoming an institution. In the 1990 and 2000, when India was rising as a global IT outsourcing hub, Wipro was already in a position to ride that wave. That was the reward of strategic foresight. Many companies ran after the opportunity only after liberalization, but Wipro had already laid the groundwork by then. As soon as global clients began looking toward India for technology services, software development and outsourcing, Wipro was ready. The company did not just sell coding services. It sold reliability, process maturity, and long-term client trust. And in the world of IT services, trust is the currency that can sustain revenue for decades. Today, Wipro presents itself as an AI-powered technology services and consulting company. According to the company, by the financial year ended March 2025, its annual revenue stood at around $10.5 billion. It had more than 230,000 employees, and it operated in over 65 countries. That figure does not just show size, it shows the depth of the transformation. Just think about it. A company that began with Vanaspati now speaks the global language of digital transformation, cloud, consulting, engineering, AI, and enterprise tech. Wipro's growth is not just the story of a revenue chart. It is also the story of the maturation of India Inc. Along with companies like Infosys, TCS, and HCL, Wipro helped prove that India could become not just a destination for cheap labor, but a high-value knowledge partner. Premji's contribution becomes even bigger here because he began that transition much earlier, when India's economy had not even fully opened up. He was among those pioneers who understood that in the 21st century, factories would remain important, but intellectual capital would become equally important. Premji's management style was also quite different. He is often described as a believer in simplicity, frugality, and discipline. But these words should not be understood only at the surface level. This was not just about a simple lifestyle. It had a business impact. When a leader stays away from extravagance, a signal goes through the organization as well. Focus more on substance than on show. The emphasis Premji placed on process orientation, ethics, and governance in Wipro is exactly what made the company credible for global clients. For any multinational IT company, reputation matters just as much as technical capability. His personal image too remained fascinating. He was not the kind of tycoon associated with flashy interviews, loud branding, or constant self-promotion. In today's social media age, that feels even more unusual. But perhaps that is why his influence was built not through noise, but through weight. Many big business leaders attract attention. Premji attracts respect. And respect lives longer than attention. Speaking of Azim Premji's family, his wife is Yasmin Premji, and he has two sons, among whom Richard Premji has the most public profile in the business world. According to Wipro's official profile, Richard Premji joined the company in 2007 and became executive chairman in 2019. That same year, Wipro officially announced that Azim Premji would retire from the post of executive chairman and continue to remain associated with the board as founder chairman. This succession too was not sudden, but structured. In other words, Premji did not just build the company, he also planned leadership continuity beyond himself. There is a subtle lesson hidden here. Many family businesses get trapped in governance crises by the second generation. Sometimes it is ego clashes, sometimes succession wars, sometimes strategic confusion. Premji offered a relatively orderly model of transition. That shows that he saw the business not as a personal extension, but as an institutional legacy. Only when a leader sees the company not as mine, but as something larger than me, does a smooth transition become possible. But Azim Premji's story would still have been big even if it had been only the story of corporate success. What makes it extraordinary is the chapter of philanthropy. There are many billionaires in the world, but very few commit wealth to society on this scale. By 2019, according to widely reported commitments, he had taken his philanthropy to around $21 billion, and around 67% of Wipro's economic interest was said to be committed toward philanthropy. Wipro's own About Us profile also says that around 66% of its economic interest is vested in philanthropy. The work of the Azim Premji Foundation began with education, but over time it expanded into health, livelihoods, and grants. According to the foundation's official information, its direct field work spans 7 states and 1 union territory. It has field institutes in 61 districts, more than 1,700 team members working on the ground, and grant support going to more than 1,150 not-for-profits and civil society organizations. This philanthropy is not just cheek writing, it is institution building. And institution building is always harder, because its impact is created not through headlines, but through years of patient work. Azim Premji University is also part of this larger vision. According to official pages, the university has graduated more than 5,300 students. That detail matters Because Premji's model of philanthropy goes beyond emergency relief. He emphasizes long-term capacity building. Teachers, education systems, public institutions, scholarships, research, and training. In other words, he did not turn wealth into consumption or symbolic charity. He turned it into societal capacity. Now let us talk about net worth. According to Forbes' real-time profile around the 2nd of April 2026, Azim Premji's net worth was listed at around $8.3 billion, and he appeared around 409th in the global billionaires ranking. The interesting thing is that if he had not made such an enormous philanthropic commitment, he could have ranked much higher on wealth lists. But perhaps that is exactly what makes him distinct. He chose the race to be meaningful over the race to be richest. That is where his story becomes not just inspiring, but thought-provoking. Because usually success stories tell us how wealth is created. Premji's story also asks what is done with wealth. Is wealth merely a means to expand a family empire? Is it a symbol of status? Is it a measure of legacy? Or can it also become an instrument for structural change in society? In Premji's case, the answer seems to be the fourth one. Another great lesson comes from his life. Crisis does not always destroy a person, sometimes it defines him. If after his father's death in 1966 he had returned only with the mindset of saving the business, Wipro might perhaps have remained a decent consumer products company. But he turned that very crisis into a turning point. He transformed an inherited business into a future-ready enterprise. And that is the difference between an entrepreneur and a custodian. A custodian protects a legacy. An entrepreneur changes the meaning of that legacy. Azim Premji's journey also teaches that the greatest strength in business is not always capital, but clarity. Many had capital, but not everyone could identify the direction of technology in time. Many had leadership, but not everyone knew how to turn simplicity and governance into a competitive advantage. Many created wealth, but very few chose to connect it with purpose. Premji's story carries all three layers together: vision, discipline, and responsibility. Today, when the new generation looks at business through startup valuations, funding rounds, unicorn tags, and instant fame, Premji's model becomes even more relevant. Because his path tells us that durable businesses are built not through noise, but through fundamentals. Building a strong institution takes decades. You have to bring the right people together. You have to build systems. You have to remain patient. And many times, the biggest gamble is the one that others at the time find boring, slow, or impossible. So the next time you hear the name Wipro, do not just see an IT company. Also see the 21-year-old young man behind it who returned to India after his father's death, leaving behind unfinished studies. See a company that began with Vanaspati and reached digital transformation. See a businessman who is a billionaire but is known for simplicity. And see a philanthropist who did not only accumulate wealth but also sent it back into society. If this video has taught you something new, or if you feel this information should reach more people, don't forget to like and share the video. Your small share can become valuable and useful information for someone else. If you have any questions related to this topic, or if you would like to share your opinion with us, be sure to write in the comment box. We read every question and suggestion from you, because your feedback inspires us to create better content. And if you want to keep receiving such interesting and reliable information about business, the economy, and the world in the future, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel GRT Business and also press the bell icon so that you get notifications of every new video directly. At GRT Business, we always strive to provide you with accurate, balanced, and reliable information. Our news and analysis are prepared based on information obtained from various news agencies, public sources, and public opinion. We make every effort to verify and validate each fact as much as possible. But in case of any possible error or dispute, the responsibility lies with the respective sources. Our only aim is to present you with a correct and trustworthy perspective so that you can understand any topic better.